You're listening to the Crew Book Club podcast, the show that challenges you to change your mindset through hearing about dope books. Thanks for hanging with the crew to get advice, ask questions, and gain knowledge with me, your host, Sade Hill. What up, crew? What's good? Let's get into another episode of the Crew Book Club podcast. First and foremost, how are you all really feeling today? Okay? Because we can't keep it real with nobody else. We need to keep it real with ourselves. If you're not feeling themom.com, that's okay. Listen to the rest of the Crew Book Club podcast, and maybe you'll feel more revived and ready for the world. Okay, so let's get into it. You know, we are starting a new book. This is our fourth book. Set Boundaries, Find Peace, A Guide to Reclaiming Yourself by Nedra Tawwab. We gonna get into this. Book is really great. But before we even get into that book, we need to get into who gon' check me, boo? God is always checking us, even when we don't want to be checked. But it's up to us to receive the check. And I found receiving it is way better than ignoring it, because he gonna keep checking you in the same way. So why waste any time? You know what? We gonna give God big energy. All right, so the Who Gon Check Me Boo comes from the Bigger Devotional Journal, page 77, The Danger Zone. It reads Proverbs chapter 4, verse 12. It says, when you walk, your steps will not be hampered. When you run, you will not stumble. Proverbs chapter 4, verse 12. And some of the key sentences in her, in the journal to me was, God's divine inventions are intentionally inconvenient. He sends us to unpopular places to prepare us before he enlarges our territory. The divine invitation to lead anew will challenge our hidden attachment to our circumstances, our conformity, and our comfort zone. Divine leadership, which is the mantle of every woman, requires a willingness to surrender control and actively align with God's leading, especially when it doesn't make sense. Obedience tests our trust, unmasks hidden idols, reveals true fears. The danger zone is not where we're going. The real danger is where we are staying. As we walk in obedience, we'll walk through the doorways of destiny. Woo! So good. And it's so funny. The prayer at the end, it's not even funny. It's totally confirmation. The prayer of the day at the end of the Danger Zone and Believe Bigger, it reads, Lord, no circumstance is too dangerous for you to achieve victory. Thank you for making me a dangerous woman designed to win and not stumble. It made me think of last episode, Born to be Wild, and where she put dangerous woman, I put thank you for making me a wild woman designed to win and not stumble. So I felt like that was Who Gon Check Me, and it was definitely confirming we were born to be wild. And I really love that, because like I always say, I'd rather do something than to do nothing at all, because just like she said, the danger zone is not where we're going. The real danger is where we're staying. Let's get into some crew love. Now, I need some crew love from you guys. Like right now, while we're listening, I need you to go leave a written review on the Apple Podcast. I don't even care if you don't have an iPhone or an iPad, whatever. I need you to grab your friend iPhone. Like we all know somebody with an iPhone. And I need you to go leave a written review, okay? As well as if you're wherever you listen to your podcast, I need you to put 5-star ratings, okay? And if you listen to your podcast somewhere and a friend said, well, it's not on mine, let me know and I'll see how I can get the podcast on that platform as well, okay? And for my YouTubers, hit that subscribe button now. I need some crew love. And once you leave a review, I will share it with the rest of the crew so you can all know that you're receiving this bomb information and you're loving it. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. All right. As you give me crew love, I want to continue to give you awesome crew love. I know we be on the go. I know I'm always in my car. or you might be at your desk as well. And this is a good way to listen to books and other things. I partnered up with Audible so we can enjoy books in different ways. Audible offers more than just audiobooks as well. They offer podcasts, wellness programs, theatrical performances, comedy, Audible originals. You get 30 days to experience the Audible experience by using the Crew Book Club code. You go to audibletrial.com/crewlove. Audible, TRAIL.com/crewlove. The link will be in the show notes as well. Okay, so let's not hesitate or wait any longer. I know you are highly anticipating getting into this new book. I feel like our climate is really big on boundaries. Respect my boundaries. Respect my boundaries. Don't come in my boundaries. So I could not go on without doing this book. Set Boundaries, Find Peace, A Guide to Reclaiming Yourself. We cannot live without boundaries. It brings so much peace. Okay? So, the first chapter is what the heck is boundaries? And chapter 2, the cost of not having healthy boundaries. It's cost us, y'all. And it was in my business. This book been in my business, I tell you. I absolutely love how the beginning of each chapter, she gives us a background story in relation to how boundaries can be set in real life scenarios. So, and she actually uses her clients, but she changes the names and everything, so we don't know who she's talking about, y'all. But it's really good and relatable. Another thing is really nice is that she gives you examples on how to say it and when to say it. It's really good. That's why I recommend getting the book, because you can go back and be like, okay, how should I say this if I'm dealing with someone who doesn't like my boundary? So she gives those examples as well. Okay, so let's get into it. We're going to go to page 5. The definition of boundaries. Boundaries are expectations and needs that help you feel safe and comfortable in your relationships. Expectations in relationship help you stay mentally and emotionally well. Learning when to say no and when to say yes is an essential part of feeling comfortable when interacting with others. She connected that to, like your childhood and how it affects your reactions and behaviors in your adulthood. Is highlighted on page 9. If your family operates on unspoken limits or regularly ignores limits, you will probably grow up lacking the communication skills necessary to be assertive about your needs. This is so good. One thing that it says about self-care is saying no to something in order to say yes is your own emotional, physical, and mental well-being. That is self-care, not shopping. Shopping, y'all, is not self-care. Setting boundaries is self-care, okay? Avoidance is passive-aggressive way of expressing that you are tired of showing up. Hoping that the problem will go away feels like the safest option, but avoidance is a fear-based response. I know we all been there. I've been there. I might be like, you know what? I'm done talking to them. After that last experience, if they can't look back and see what they did wrong for me not to respond to them, that's on them. They should know better. No, it don't work like that. We have to express our boundaries, okay? So there are 3 levels of boundaries. One of the first levels is porous. The porous boundaries look like oversharing, codependence, enmeshment, meaning lacking emotional separation between you and another person. The inability to say no, people pleasing, dependency on feedback from others, paralyzing fear for being rejected, accepting mistreatment. Ooh, out of that list, I used to struggle with oversharing. I got better at that. But I slowly am getting away from people pleasing. I don't want to say I'm 100% cured, but definitely getting away from that. Another level of boundary is rigid. Never sharing, building walls, avoiding vulnerability, cutting people out, having high expectations of others, enforcing strict rules. The third level is healthy boundaries. Those look like being clear about your values, listening to your own opinion, sharing with others appropriately, having a healthy vulnerability with people who've earned your trust, being comfortable saying no, being comfortable hearing no without taking it personal. I feel like I hit one of those in all three at one point or another. But I did take the assessment in the back of the book, which is really cool. And at the time, I tested healthy. But I feel like that's an assessment that I want to take regularly just to make sure I'm staying on point with my healthy boundaries. And this work that I've been putting to myself has been 2 years, and I completely see a difference. And this is not something that you can just do for a few months and then be like, okay, I'm good. I know this is something that's going to be continuing work. Like in our other book, what Sarah Jake say, in our brain, receiving new information is good because it shreds our brain cells to new ones. So learning is good, reading is good. And if you can't read a book, listening is good. But as long as you're receiving good information and learning things new, that's how we continue to have a healthy state of mind. So yeah, let's continue to put in the work. Now that you know the 3 levels, let's look at how there's 2 parts of setting boundaries. The 2 parts, big deal, communication. People cannot accurately assume your boundaries based on your body language and unspoken expectations. I just said that. That's on page 13. Check it. Okay. Action. Listen to this. You must uphold what you communicate through your behavior. For example, she says, let's say you told a friend, it's important to me that you honor plans that we set up. If you need to change your plans, please send me a text a few hours before because you verbally communicated your boundary. When it's violated, you need to reinforce it with action. In this case, you will let your friend know that you can't accommodate the change plans because you didn't give you enough notice. You might say gently, I want to hang out with you, but my schedule won't allow for the adjustment. Let's set up another time, girl, next week, okay? I love how she gives those examples. Because the old me would have been like, I'm going to sit with her this one time, and then after this, I ain't going no more. And she gonna be like, well, what happened to you? But sis, you didn't communicate your issue. You didn't communicate your boundary. All right? And this goes both ways. If you're asking somebody to show up on time to respect your time, you need to be doing the same thing for them. We can't be asking people to respect our boundaries if we're not even doing them. One thing that I started doing is taking your shoes off at my door. I have ceramic tile throughout. And that sucker, that stuff hard to clean, to keep clean. So it's like, I need to be real respectful of my time and what I do. I'm busy. I'm a mom. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm doing all this stuff. The least you can do when you come to my house is take off your shoes so I don't have to mop every day. Okay. Another thing is when I go to other people's house, I ask. And a lot of times I'm starting to just take my shoes off out of respect because I want them to know when you come to my house, taking off your shoe. I don't want you coming in and saying, well, I'll make you do that at your house. Because you're going to have that mind like, dang, Shawty do take her shoes off when she come to my house. So the same way you want somebody to respect your boundary, you got to put into action and show them that you're respecting your own boundary. Okay? There is common responses to to when we start to set boundaries. I struggle with this because they might think, oh, she a new. She acting new because she got boundaries, and people tend to have pushback. They tend to test you. They tend to ignore your boundaries or rationalize and question your boundaries. They get defensive. They start ghosting you, or they give you the silent treatment, or the best, they could accept it. But a lot of people struggle with those things. One of the things I struggle with when setting my boundaries is pushback and people getting defensive. And one thing I had to learn was that if they love me enough and want to be around me, they will respect it because they value me and they know what I'm trying to do. And throughout the book, she gives you examples on how to respond to those things. I'll give you this example on how she said you should handle pushback. It says, try these examples. Thank you for letting me know. However, I'm proceeding with my request. Or if someone's doing pushback, maybe say this: I understand that you don't like my boundary, but I need to feel safe in my relationships. Having limits helps me feel safe. So good, right? I'm going to say that again so you can write it down. Grab your paper and pen if you're taking notes. What did the pastor say? I understand that you don't like my boundary, but I need to feel safe in my relationship. Having limits helps me feel safe. If somebody said that to me, I'll be like, oh, I want you to feel safe around me. I'll respect your boundary. That's what that gave me. So I love, and she does that throughout the book, y'all. That's why I think it's so good, because you could be having a conversation on the phone and have this book right here and be like, okay, let me say this. Let me say that. So good, right? That was just chapter 1, y'all. And I had to really narrow it down. She gives you how to handle people that ignore your boundary, test your boundary, who question your boundary. But I just gave examples of the ones that I actually have been struggling with when it came to setting my boundary. So definitely check that out. Okay. So let's get into chapter 2. But before we get into chapter 2, I want to talk about this. Reading this book, y'all, has me so thankful that I experienced therapy 100%, because I was able to understand the context a little better, and the way she writes it is really good. And I'm not sure how expensive it is to book Miss Tawab, Dr. Tawab. I'm not sure. Is it Dr. Tawab? I gotta look that up. No, it is Dr. Tawab, because she's a therapist. Duh, Sade. Anyway, but I don't know how much it costs to book her, but I probably can afford her right now. That's why I think we are lucky that we have our partnership with BetterHelp. You know, the crew can access BetterHelp, which is the sponsor of this episode. Y'all, it's affordable. And don't forget, we have that 10% discount for the first month of your therapy session. It is so amazing. It's professional therapy. You go to betterhelp.com/crewlove. That's betterhelp.com/crewlove. Guys, I would not recommend nothing that I have not used in my past. I will always use it first before I tell you to use it. And BetterHelp is amazing. Absolutely love it. Okay, so go to betterhelp.com/crewlove. betterhelp.com/crewlove. I'm going to say it one more time. I'm going to spell it for you. betterhelp.com/crewlove. Okay, get you some therapy. The link will be in the show notes as well. All right, let's get into chapter 2, the cost of not having healthy boundaries. Any therapist will tell you that. And a lot of them, I notice, whenever you're watching like a show or asking somebody about therapy, they tend to connect it to your childhood. But the thing about the cost of not having healthy boundary is that it can be so discomforting setting boundaries. But like the great writer Brene Brown says, choosing discomfort over resentment. And the author put that in the beginning of chapter 2. What happens when you avoid setting boundaries? What do we hate, y'all? We hate being burnt out. I know I do. And burnout, it can show up by not knowing when to say no, not knowing to say how to say no, prioritizing others over yourself, people pleasing, the superhero syndrome. I can do it all. And unrealistic expectations, as well as not being appreciated for what you do. One of the things that I struggled with is people pleasing. And I have to constantly check myself when it comes to people pleasing. And in the beginning of chapter 2, she gives a story of Erica, who has children. She's a working mom and everything. And she's just giving all of her help, but she was getting burnt out. And with people pleasing, it says, the author says, Erica had a lot of people she wanted to please: her children, boss, and friends. She wanted to be a better mother than her mother had been to her. And trying to please everyone, however, she was left with little energy to care for herself. Suggested boundary was, I suggested that Erica start asking herself, why is this important to me? And do only what is most important. Sometimes we do things that are important to us, but that we believe maintain a particular image, quote unquote, good parent. and quote, person who has it all together. Y'all, none of us have it all together. Stop faking. I ain't faking that no more. I'm not the perfect parent, and I don't have all together. I'm taking it day by day. And that's one thing I had. When I'm asked to do something, the first thing I do is let me check my calendar. And then I think, what is my intention in doing this? I don't go to every brunch. And trust me, I get invited. I don't do everything. And even when I'm asked to go out with friends, like even on my day off, I'm like, I know I'm free, but I was free because I needed to chill so I won't feel burnt out. So I really love how she breaks down each of those ways to handle being burnt out. People pleasing was definitely one of mine. I was never diagnosed with depression, but I definitely felt like I've had moments of depression that felt like depression. Laying in bed, didn't want to get out of bed, blinds closed, all of that. So on page 36 through 37, the author addresses how treating depression is treating hopelessness. It says, my work with depressed clients involves empowering them to believe in themselves. When they're able to do that, their lives get better. One of the ways I still instill hope is by helping them set simple boundaries, which is so good. If you experience depression, it can be helpful to set boundaries about how many things you expect yourself to do in a single day. If you add too much or to your to-do list but lack the motivation, you'll set yourself up for failure. Depression will increase if you take on too much without finishing any task you started. That was me. I was never diagnosed, but when I got into those states, I would look at what was happening, and it was literally I wasn't completing the things that I wanted to complete. I was doing everything else. I was burning myself out for everything else instead of the things that I wanted to complete. And I had to become a little selfish with my time. And I want you to understand, when it comes to selfishness, and I'm realizing when I have someone that still calls me selfish, and when they say it, I take time and I be like, okay, is it I'm selfish because I'm not doing what you want me to do? That's when I'm like, okay, yeah, it's selfish to you because it's not meeting your agenda, but it ain't selfish to me. And I'm honest. I will tell them, like, I don't want to do that. That's not what I want to do. That's not what I'm interested in. And they get offended. And I'm like, I can't help that you're offended. But I don't want to have resentment towards you. So I'm trying to save our relationship and not do things that I don't want to do because you want me to do them. So if you want to save our relationship, don't have me going around here faking and like I'm happy doing what you asked me to do and I'm not. Because that's going to have me over here out the door. We ain't going to have no relationship. Okay? But yeah, so I really like how she addressed that. If you notice yourself doing things to avoid boundaries, like moving away, gossiping, complaining, and avoidance and cutting people off, yeah, you're avoiding setting boundaries, and we do not want to do that. Especially that moving away thing, like you finna go all the way on another side of the country, i.e. me, I did it. And those same things are going to travel with you there. You're going to move to another job that you complaining about at this job. That same thing can travel you to another job because you're still not setting boundaries. So no matter what you do, sis, you need to set some boundaries to better your life because you're going to be jumping and hopping in and out of relationships because you don't know how to communicate your boundaries and put them in action. Woo! So good. All right. One of the ones I struggled with was cutting people off. You can ask any of my friends. I'll be quick to cut a off. For real. I don't have time or the capacity. But then I realized if I was like that, I would be cutting everybody off. So I had to realize, okay, let me think. Do I want you out of my life or do I want you in my life? Do I love you enough to communicate the boundaries with you and put up with you? Okay, yes, I am. So yeah, I had to do that. And I had to, because of the people that are in my life and I love them and I don't want to be out of my life, I was willing to communicate those boundaries and give them the opportunity to do so. And the author actually gives us these 3 great questions I highly recommend asking yourself when it comes to setting your boundary, which is on page 45. Before you cut people off, ask yourself this. Was the other person aware of my issues with the relationship? 2, have I tried setting a boundary? 3, did I uphold my boundary and hold the other person accountable? So y'all, before we go off cutting people off, ask those 3 questions. And I'm talking about the people that you really care about and want in your life. Okay? All right. That was just chapter 1 and 2, y'all. And that was just me focusing on my personal experience with those. But she has so much juicy information in that. And I know we all have different experience, but let me tell you, if you heard some of those things that struggling with setting boundaries, there's an example in the book about recognizing the boundary, how to set it, and how to word it. It is really helpful. So let's get into the challenge of the week. Yes, I love a good challenge. The challenge of the week is to set a boundary. This week, we're going to set boundaries. And the thing is, it don't have to be a big boundary, y'all. It can be something small. The author gives some examples on some less harmful boundaries, like accepting assistance in your car from the grocery store. Publix. I don't know if y'all know about Publix. I love Publix. Do they still do that where they ask you to take your groceries to your car? Because you don't have to tip. Y'all know that? And don't feel obligated. But yeah, try something like that if they still do it. Another one is correcting people when they say your name wrong. I do that. Asking for help while shopping instead of trying to find merchandise on your own. Ooh, don't we do that, y'all? You know you going in the store, you need help finding denim. You walk into the store, did you need help finding anything? No, I'm good. Be walking around. You don't waste 20 minutes of your time. And then you go back to the same person. And I done did this. Be honest. You avoid the person who asks you for help because you don't want to look like you didn't need that help at the time. Because you don't want to have that face. Yeah, I told you about how you needed help. But we've been there. So try that. Walk into a store and be like, yes, I need help finding this, that, and the other. And honestly, y'all, that will save us some time. Another one is asking questions instead of assuming you know the answer. When you don't know, just ask. Try those small boundary setting. Another good one that she had in here was when you go out to eat and they get your order wrong, start that small and be like, hey, can you fix this? Because I know some people, I done been out with them, that'll be like, oh, no, it's all good. It's fine. But no, set that boundary. Okay, so start small. And it might be that time for you to be like, after listening to this episode, I need to set a big boundary that I've been avoiding. And do that. But this week's challenge is definitely to set a boundary. I want us to have healthy lives, and having a healthy life comes with setting boundaries, okay? All right, so let's give it a try. All right, let's get into what would the crew do? Ooh, y'all. This is juicy. This is our first scenario. I'm super excited. I'm happy that you guys are interested to ask me advice and to get my thoughts and feedback. I'm going to do my best, okay? I listened to another podcast and they say, if you don't give a lot of detail, I'm going to fill in the blanks. And I don't want to fill in the blanks with y'all. So try to be detailed enough where I can kind of get an idea of what's really going on, okay? So our first scenario comes from someone in the crew. It says, my husband and I have been together for 7 years. We were invited to a wedding, but it happens to fall on a weekend. He will be traveling. I can relate to that. He doesn't want me to go without him, but I really want to go. And he is really not giving me a legit reason why. Just says, I don't want people thinking anything. What should I do? This is... I see boundaries written in this and not having something set clear from her husband's side. But I really want to know, like, is this wedding that you're going to someone that you mutually both know, or just like, what's the relationship? Because I know like certain weddings, it's like, oh no, I'm missing work to go here. So it might not be as, or maybe he has a job where he can't just miss for a wedding. I can relate to being married. I've been married 12 years and my husband does travel a lot. And it's a lot of times where I want us to be a couple and go to places, but we just can't. So I can totally relate to that. I've actually been to several weddings without my husband. Do I get the little look? I kind of get a look because the assumption is I'm single, but then I have my ring on and I communicate, oh yeah, I'm married, yada, yada, yada. So there shouldn't be an issue. I mean, you have your ring on. I don't know what the relationship to the person that you are marrying, but say for instance, if this is a person wedding that you're going to that your husband doesn't get along with, for this, you're married to him. So for the sake of the relationship, you might not want to go, right? That friend who you're going to the wedding should understand, because she is going to be faced with things like this because she's a wife. Now, if your husband, if all he's saying is, I don't want people to think anything, that makes me think maybe there's an insecurity or something of some sort. Maybe he a little jelly that you going to a wedding without him, and he wants you to not go because he can't go. It sounds something is more behind that. I know men have a really hard time expressing their feelings, and they just say stuff like that. It's like talking to a kid. No, I don't want you to go. Well, why? Because I don't want to. That's what that sounds like to me. There's something deeper in that. So have a conversation with him and be like, honey, when do we really start caring about what people think? Do we really care what people think? Do you trust me? Don't you trust me to go to this wedding and be like, yeah, I'm married, yada, yada, yada? There's something deeper than that. So one, I would suggest having a really in-depth conversation with him about the wedding. Two, I don't know what your relationship is with a friend, but it just seems like if he don't get along with these people, like legit get along with them, he got an issue with them, I definitely wouldn't go, because you married to him and not them, and they should understand that. But that whole, I don't want people thinking anything, that's a whole nother conversation. And honestly, I would recommend therapy. I honestly would, because, or him reading this book. You guys reading it together to be able to articulate what boundaries are being crossed if you go to places without him. So that's my advice from the crew. Hopefully that answered it. Crew, you guys can always chime in when I post the What Would the Crew Do Ask Advice section on our Instagram at the Crew Book Club. Or you can go on the YouTube and you can drop some comments in there to help our sis out on what should she do. What are your thoughts? Okay? Love that. And let me know what happens if you go to the wedding or if you don't go to the wedding. All right. So I'm going to let y'all go. I'm going to get y'all out of here. But before I let y'all go, we have to give you the quote of the week. A quote of the week. While I'm ticking and talking, the quote of the week. All right. The quote of the week comes from page 38. It says, communicating our boundaries isn't easy, but without it, we set ourselves up long-term suffering. We simply can't have a healthy relationship with another person without communicating what's acceptable and unacceptable to us. Yes, so crew, I need y'all to go out, communicate, take action, and set your boundaries. Hey, want to be a part of the crew? Hit that follow button so you'll never miss an episode. And while you're at it, we would appreciate you showing crew love by rating the show on iTunes and Spotify. Don't keep all this goodness to yourself. Share and tell a friend so your whole crew can be growing with you. Let me be the first to tell you, thank you and welcome to the crew.